Okay, so a warm Jai Bhim to all. Thank you for joining us on the Sunday evening for this session of the scheduled caste status for the Dalit Christian and Dalit Muslims. First of all, I would like to tell you about the Ambedkar Reading Circle. We are the anti-caste collective, which we have started in this year April for to organize folks against the anti-caste issues in Bangalore, where we lack the spaces to talk about these issues. So overall, I'll give you the structure of the this session. So today we have the panelist Sumit, and the moderator will be Ravali. I will give the introduction about them, and then I will hand over to the Ravali. I will encourage the folks to note down their reflections, their questions, so we can take it in the end. So discussions will be running for the like 1 hour, which will be like combined for the Sumit and Shireen, and last half an hour will be the question answer session for which will be like just put your question in the chat box or you can unmute. So I'll start with the introduction of Shireen. So Shireen Azam is a DPhil researcher at the University of Oxford. Her research is centered on the uncomfortable fit between caste and secularism, and specifically on the invisibilization of caste among Muslims. She was formerly assistant editor at the journal Economic and Political Weekly, where she founded the digital platform EPW Engage. Sumit Samos is an anti-caste activist and writer. His research interests are Dalit Christians, cosmopolitan elites, and student activism. He comes from Korapur district, Odisha. He has done his master's in modern South Asian studies from the University of Oxford. Currently, he is a part of Radio Live Paris and presents on caste in various national threads of France. So now, let me Christian Dalit woman working in the eccentric world of the development sector. She is the co-founder of ISTHA Foundation, working to improve the agency and future readiness of young women who are first generation college graduates from marginalized caste across Telangana. She constantly trying to learn about more about the culture and languages of different groups of people across the South Indian states. She loves gardening, chai, deadlifts, and comedy. She is from Hyderabad and continues to believe that biryani is the greatest food on the planet. So with that, I'll just hand over to the Ravani, and yeah.
Thank you so much, Abhijit. I just wanted to acknowledge that my father is here and I'm feeling a little nervous. Uh, anyway, I'm going to start us off. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. And welcome to this panel discussion on the issue of inclusion, or rather, the continued exclusion of Dalit Christians and Muslims under the scheduled caste category in India. Um, Today, we are here to engage and learn more about this issue that is sort of surfaced over the last few months because of certain issues, and we'll talk more about that. This is an opportunity for us to learn more from two amazing folks who've done so much work on this issue. Just to start us off, we know that our constitution, which enshrines the values of liberty, justice, equality, and fraternity, recognizes the significance of uplifting disadvantaged sections of society through affirmative action. But we know that some groups have still been excluded for many, many decades. And today we are speaking specifically of Shireen and Sumit today, who will shed more light on this topic for all of us. So thank you so much again for joining us. I'm just going to start us off with this to both of you, and either of you could answer it. How does the constitutional framework of India approach this issue for reservations overall for the SC category, and where do Dalit Muslims and Dalit Christians feature in this whole narrative? Maybe Shireen, we can start with you and then we can go to Sumit.
Sure. Thank you, Ravali, and thank you, Abhijit and Roy, for hosting and coordinating this. And I'm very, the Ambedkar Reading Circle in Bangalore. It's the kind of like community that I'd really wanted to speak to, and I'm really looking. Sorry. I'm not sure why my network is so bad suddenly.
You
Okay,
could probably just
just
try turning off your video.
I'll turn off my video the next time this happens. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Right. So the schedule caste, the way the schedule caste status is structured right now. When the constitution first came into force, there were no. Are you still not able to hear me, Lovely?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry. Yeah, okay. So when the constitution first came into force, there was no qualifiers on the scheduled caste category. It was the scheduled caste category to say that only people who qualify as Hindu can get to be scheduled castes. Now, as it holds today, Sikhs and Buddhists and Hindus technically can qualify to be scheduled caste members, and the only two groups which are majorly excluded from this today is Muslims and Christians. Now, where are Dalit Muslims and Christians in our constitutional framework? They are in the OBC categories. So in OBC categories of various states, you'll find all Dalit or most Dalit Muslims names and Christians. There's still exclusions that keep getting contested at local levels, and names keep getting added. As late as like 10 years ago, some Dalit Muslim castes were not even in the OBC category. The same with Christians. So Dalit Muslims and Christians today, many of them get recognized in the OBC lists, but they are not in the scheduled caste list. And because the scheduled caste list is only maintained by the state, unlike the OBC list, which is maintained both by the state and the center, this can only happen at the central level. There is no local or federal way to recognize scheduled caste status. Various states have come up with different ways to, like as I find in my work constantly, there is admission at various levels state that yes, there are Dalit Muslims and Christians. I'm working on national Safai Karamchari reports, and there you constantly see the Dalit Halal Khor Muslims mentioned, that they clean, the municipalities, they do cleaning jobs, and the state recognizes this at local level. So over the years, various things have been internalized in different state frameworks to address this. So for example, Bihar has a category called extremely backward caste. So within the OBC, they created another category to be able to address this, difference between this. And even there are central Safai Karamchari schemes which allow for sanitation workers to be recognized as Muslims and Christians. So yes, broadly, we don't have a recognition for scheduled caste status for Muslims and Christians, but and they come in OBC. But at local levels, there is what you would call when you see the bodies of the Muslims and Christians, when you see where they work, states at various levels have accommodated it in their own way, but there's no unified thing, and they don't get the protection that scheduled caste status grants them, and they need as Dalit Muslims and Christians.
Great. Thank you so much, Shireen. Because you've answered a chunk of that question, I'm going to go to Sumit and with a slightly different question. As an extension of this, Sumit, based on what we know, how Dalit Christians and Dalit Muslims have featured in the Constitution, what are the repercussions of where we are positioned, right? Like, what are the repercussions of granting or not granting, specifically in this case, not granting the scheduled caste category to people who have been historically marginalized? We speak a lot about reservations, but obviously this goes much beyond reservations. So if you can speak a little about that, what are the repercussions?
Yeah, I think I would like to refer here one of the commission that was, one of the commission that was suggested by the government of India in 2002. This commission was the National Commission on Review of Indian Constitution, and in that it suggested that Dalit Christians in southern India, they face similar kind of caste atrocities like Dalit Hindus. So whether or not they should be given SC status is a different thing, but at least they should be added within the SC Prevention of Atrocities Act, right? The other repercussions, there are many repercussions, right? It is not just about reservation in services, like reservation in jobs. but also like various schemes and scholarships, hostels, and like local government, like even in the panchayat, let's say if you have a representative of your own community, that influences where the funding goes, right? And this funding can be this funding can be for small things, but they're very important when it comes to small towns in rural India, right? Like small things like where can you have a water tank, where can you have a road, these might seem very small things, but they're very important, right? And apart from this, I think other important aspects that we see in this time period, like post 1990, where we see a rise of what we call the Hindutva politics, right? Christians and Muslims who belong to Dalit communities, they're at the receiving end far worse than other Muslims and other Christians. Why? Because they do not have any political influence. They're economically weak, and they cannot file a case under SCST Prevention of Atrocities Act. And we know that like SCST Prevention of Atrocities Act gives you some hope to register a case faster and to at least put some pressure on the police. Like, if the police is not willing to file a case under SCST Prevention of Atrocities Act, the civil society groups or Dalit organizations who are on the ground can put a pressure, right? So Dalit Christians and Dalit Muslims, and here a little bit of geography. Geography, when I say geography, like we know places like Tamil Nadu and Kerala, and particularly Tamil Nadu, which has a huge population of Dalit Christians, right? I mean, it has a huge population of Christians in India, and among those Christians, 60 to 70% estimated are Dalit Christians, right? And Tamil Nadu is a place where caste atrocities are rampant, right? Tamil Nadu is almost like Rajasthan when it comes to caste atrocities, and Dalit Christians there find it very difficult. And these Dalit Christians, they don't just face caste atrocities by the dominant caste Christians like the Vanyas or Velalas, and at times caste practices even by the fishing caste Christians, right? Not just them, but also by the Hindus, right? So that is one thing. And the other thing is, of course, when it comes to Dalit Christians, like Punjab is one place where you have a good number of Dalit Christians. In places like Chhattisgarh, Orissa, you have a good number of Dalit Christians, right? So Prevention of Atrocities Act, right? They can be targeted not just for their religion, but also because they can be targeted. Their own community members will not support them until and unless there is a big event like Kandhamal, where 50,000 people gets displaced and 300 churches get burnt. Dalit Christian issue do not become a Christian issue. Only then it becomes a minority issue. Everybody comes, all the international organizations. Other times, it is not spoken about, even within Christian circles.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for elaborating on that point, Sumit. I think you've covered so many different aspects of it, and I completely resonate with so much of what you said. I think really well articulated. Just double clicking on the thread that you're on. Sorry, I think Shireen, you want to add to that?
Yeah, sorry, I just had another repercussion that, to add to, apart from all the things that Sumit really put really well, we also have to realize the effect of this on people. One of the communities that I've done field work with, the Halalkhor community, they are not addressed by their caste name because there is some sort of a denial about their Muslimness. So if people call them as Halalkhor, it would, in that region of eastern UP, it will establish them as Muslims. So they are called with other caste slurs, which actually are used on Dalit Hindus. So they are in this position where they're treated as Dalits. Their caste slurs are used on them, but not used on them. And it's a very, very complex kind of a situation, like a mental situation that they face. And I'm writing, with talking to many of them and writing on this. And something that constantly comes up in their narratives is, do we exist? Are we there? Who are we? Because somehow the state constantly uses our bodies to clean. Most of the people in the Varanasi municipality are are people from this caste. Joel Lee writes that most people who pick up, scavengers in Varanasi belong to one Dalit Muslim caste, Jamadar. So the state is constantly using their bodies, they treat as Dalit Muslims, but when they go to even certificates, no one recognizes their caste name, because there's such invisibilization of that caste name and of the idea of a Dalit Muslim. It creates a psychological complete warfare in their mind, where one person tells me that I don't even know what people think of me because I don't know what is happening. Like, they give me a lot of respect, I'm a poet, they call me on the stage, but I feel like, what do they say when I'm gone? So you have to also understand what this does to people when their community is constantly invisibilized. And obviously it happens even now with a lot of debate right now, in the last 2-3 weeks. What has happened is a lot of experiences have been completely legitimized, as if Dalit Christians don't exist, and Dalit Muslims don't exist, by people saying that no, untouchability does not exist in these communities. So apart from everything else that Sumit put, there's also this aspect which is really central to the human existence.
Absolutely. Really well articulated. Thank you so much, Shireen, for sharing that aspect of it as well, the psychological aspect of identity and existence and what it does to people who belong to these communities. And protection, it's also a matter of no incoherence with respect to their experiences, their daily experiences, right? Just wanted to sort of double click on what both of you sort of touched on. Both of you spoke about how Dalit Christians and Dalit Muslims are not fully considered by their own religious groups as well as fully Christian or as fully Muslim. Wanted to understand, and this is a usual argument that comes up, right? Saying Islam doesn't sanction caste and Christianity doesn't sanction caste, and so why does this have to be? Why does this have to be formalized in some way? This identity of a Dalit Christian or a Dalit Muslim, when neither of these religions knowledge, not even don't feel the caste aspect doesn't feature. Little about just your responses to this argument, and what are some social and other factors that determine how this identity gets.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. Yes. So I think, of course, this is a usual argument, right? Christianity and Islam doesn't sanction caste, but Hinduism sanctions. It's a traditional feature of Hinduism. So that's why, there exists a community called Dalits. But we also need to understand, and people don't talk about it, that even Hinduism is not a homogeneous kind of a theology or a doctrine, right? And for that, like if you look at Arya Samaj, right? Arya is one organization which institutes Sikhs, and Sikhism and Buddhism. Antika scholars, they'll tell you that Sikhism and Buddhism emerged as a revolt against the Brahmins. So from the start, with then some 25 will say that Hinduism, and Buddhism are like the. But if you see like one of 1992, I think the Nestle Act or something like that, it says that Sikhism and Buddhism are different. There are a lot of contradictions within Shiri's interpretation of what even Hinduism is. In fact, I don't know in which year it was, most probably 90s, the Ramakrishna Mission wanted to run its own educational institutions and missionary institutions, and were not Hindus. These claims have because there are other practices of Hinduism which do not follow these Brahminical practices, right? But we are not about Christianity and Islam. We are talking about Christians and Muslims in India, and we are talking about caste as a social phenomena. We are not talking about caste as a religious phenomena, and this is something that has been agreed upon by. People often cite this J. Chattan's 1931, he's the census commissioner. They keep citing his report on, look, he excluded Christians and Muslims and all of that. Even he argues, even he cites in his in his report, that 1931 census report, if you look at that chapter, caste, race and tribe, he says that the practices among Muslims, endogamy and some of the practices among Muslims, are far more stricter than among the Sikhs, right? And he in fact cites one of the newspaper report in 1930, around 1930 or 1928, and says that there is one Christian pastor in in Madras who is asked to sit outside during a feast, right? So he says that merely by conversion caste doesn't go. Merely by conversion caste doesn't go, and it's a social phenomenon. But he does not give the reasons for why he does not include Dalit Christians and Dalit Muslims. He just says that they have been excluded. That's it. He does not give any reason as to why these people shouldn't be included in the scheduled caste list, right? And even that, I think Shireen will be able to tell you better, that 2 or 3 Muslim communities who are now under OBC were in fact included under the scheduled caste list, scheduled caste order in 1936. And the Buddhists of Bengal, they were in fact excluded in the 1936 scheduled caste order. I mean, if you want to talk about, if you want to take that as a base, like because the 1936 order said this, and 1936 order is very important because it was based on 1936 scheduled caste order that most of the majority of the caste lists of 1950, and the Constitution of India was framed, right? So if you're going to talk about that base itself already has so many discrepancies, right? And this is something that we need to like constantly get over with, right? And some of the arguments that Jay Chatan makes might sound like very RSS kind, even now. Like for example, he says that that tribes in a matter of time, when they assimilated to Hinduism, they become Hindus. And in fact, in Assam, that they were being included under the Hindu category, right? So it is a very and there was in 2006, there was a Prime Minister's high level committee which said that Dalit Muslims were excluded from scheduled caste list and they are put in OBC list along with other advanced castes. It is, we are still following the colonial creed, is what a high level committee of the Prime Minister of India calls, right? So these are what we are saying. Again, I think I would end with this, that we are saying that caste is a social thing. See, Ambedkar has talked about caste among Christians, among Muslims. Kanchiram has spoken about caste among Christians and Muslims. Scholars have spoken about, different commission reports have spoken about it. And they're constantly saying that caste is a social phenomenon. And I think that is where David Moss also, I remember he said once that, there is this constant attempt to communalizing caste by one group. And that is something that we need to, speak against, because caste is not just religious.
Thank you, Sumit. Shireen?
Yeah, just adding to what Sumit said, I think we need to think about what really happened in the colonial era that made these exclusions possible, and how they experienced all these communities. So one interesting moment is the Gate Circle of 1911. And so basically this is a time, till Mark Galanter Leary describes it really well, that only by the last decade of the 1890s that there is any movement on the topic of untouchables, and a lot of it is also coming, of course, from missionaries and different kind of people. But then slowly, and of course there are slightly like there's the anti-Brahmin movement starting in South India later, in the 1900s. What is happening in 1900 when the issue of untouchables slightly gets formed is upper caste Muslims go asking for separate electorates, right? And if you it's always taught to us in our history books as Muslims went and asked for it. But if you really examine their the plea, Aga Khan and all these people went to the viceroy, and he said, we the zamindars, we the landed, we have always been you. We used to rule the country and now we don't. And now because of that, we want recognition for that, because they are the upper caste are threatened because Hindus are rising up slowly, or they're almost equal to in high posts of civil officers. Now they ask for this separate electorates. Actually, Muslim upper caste also push for untouchables to be treated as separate from Hindus, because it's in their favor cut down. So this is when census is becoming an important thing, and people are adding up census numbers. People are seeing, oh, which community is more. So from 1870 onwards, what the British starts doing is they start adding people into, you can see the number of people under Hindus and Muslims and Christians, and it almost begins some sort of a tallying game of how many. They even record plus how many people change to Christians minus how many Hindus. They do this kind of record keeping, and that obviously that sparks the fear of upper caste Hindus, of the numbers of Hindus decreasing. So before this, numbers is never before this, the idea of more people, we have more people, is never a concern, because democracy or the numbers is never a weightage game. But when representation becomes a question, then everyone is trying to play this numbers game. So upper caste Muslims are trying to push this. Obviously, Dalits are saying that we are not Hindus, and Dr. Ambedkar arrives in the scene also, and but upper caste Muslims also interestingly supported, saying, oh, they are not Hindus. Now, who is there to speak about upper caste Dalit Muslims and Christians, right? They are very conveniently put as minority groups, right? They are the Muslims and Christians. And something very interesting, the Gate Circular, if you see, so there's a conversation about how do we decide the untouchables, how do we decide who are the untouchables, and Edward Gate, which is a colonial officer, comes up with 10 criteria, and the criteria is like, can they accept food from a Brahmin? Can they accept food from, will the Brahmin go near their house? So the whole object of this untouchable is framed around the idea of a Brahmin, right? So, and that's also what, if a lot of scholars, and Sumit obviously can talk about it better, is a lot of scholars also talk about how the idea of Hinduism itself is reimagined, as a colonial Brahminism, Brahminical framework of the Brahmin becomes the center of it, and then Hinduism is restructured as a religion, in the 20th century and late in 19th and 20th century. So when you see how the scheduled caste category got formed, and the exclusion it has, you have to take into account that it is a history of how certain groups were pushing and pulling, and within that knowledge framework, the way that the untouchable was being defined there was as in contrast to a Brahmin person, and thus it takes on this overtly Hindu element, which Dr. Ambedkar does resist. He tries to resist. He tries to argue that Dalits are not the lowest part of Hindus. They are a part apart in the fold. Now scheduled caste list, of course, is being made by ethnography, right? There is a lot of data being collected on the ground, and I was reading some of these reports in the Lucknow State Archives, and they constantly see Muslim Dalit castes. I didn't, because the region such, I didn't, of course, the Christians weren't the mainstay of the population there. So they constantly come up with Muslim castes. Lal Begis are mentioned there. I read a paper which said that, oh, Lal Begis are here in the list, but they're Muslims. So see what can be done. I think it should be removed. But Lal Begis is there in the final list. So there is negotiation happening between these things. And again, just to end this point, Sumit mentioned census reports. When you see census reports systematically, almost every census report runs into Dalit Muslims and Dalit Christians. It's impossible to not run into it. But the census officers have no idea what to do with it. They just like they have said things like, our caste has a Mohammedan branch, put an asterisk around it. They just don't know what to do with it, because the way they interacted with this country was, okay, there are religions, and you're a Hindu, you're a Muslim, you're a Christian. They made the laws pertaining to personal laws with each religion. They have no framework to understand this kind of intersectionality in it, and thus they document it and they let it be. So if you see census reports, there's no ways you'll miss it. Because I've compiled it for myself, and I'll try to put it out in a better way, or it's really accessible to anyone. But yeah, the reason it gets missed out is because of a history of it. And a sentence I've been repeating again and again is, the narration of history is not the narration of justice. It doesn't. If it got missed out, it doesn't mean that it was the right thing. Many things got missed out. In the way a constitution was written, and there is a reason why it happened, and there's a reason why these people's rights weren't spoken of. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Shireen and Sumit, for elaborating on that. I think there's just so much historical context to this, and you also spoke about who it benefited in the beginning, how the formation has happened and who it benefited in the beginning, and even just thinking about right now, right? Commission after commission, be it there's just so many commissions that got formed, and like the Mishra Commission, the Sacha, this just commission after commission that got formed to examine the condition of the backwardness of Dalit Christians, Dalit Muslims, or but not much has changed because of these commissions, and these commissions have not shied away from this, right? They have spoken about the need for recognition, for these groups to be included in the under the scheduled caste category. However, things have not changed much. If you can speak a little about who is benefiting right now, right? You have spoken about the historical context of it, but why do you think this situation is the way it is, even through census reports, through commissions, and these are central government appointed commissions, and these were recommended by the Supreme Court and all of that, right? And why do you think this is not moving or has moved as quickly as it should have? Who is benefiting, and why is the system the way it is right now? And either of you can go.
Sumit, do you want to go?
Yeah, I think, see, when it comes to Dalit Muslims, I really feel that because they're so small in numbers and they're politically so uninfluential, I mean, they don't even have, I mean, the number of graduates among Dalit Muslims, I don't know how many of them would be even a graduate, right? They don't even have a small middle class to even negotiate and bargain for their rights, not just with the, anti-caste movement, the Muslim political leaders power, right? When it comes to Dalit Christians, there is a small group, there is a small middle class that has been formed due to missionary activities, and I think we all can agree upon that. I mean, we shouldn't have, we don't have to shy away from that. Yeah. In Andhra Pradesh and Tamil Nadu and Telangana, these are three states where you have Dalit Christians. A small section of them have been politically influential, but in terms of building networks and in terms of negotiating, in terms of building the discourse. And so Dalit Christian Liberation Movement in Tamil Nadu, right? They have been constantly pressurizing the larger church bodies to take note of it, right? But there are two ways we can look at it. The larger Christian community is not going to take into account. Why? Because they want to project themselves as a caste-free community, a very egalitarian community. If you bring caste into the church, like if you talk about caste itself, it will divide us, as if division does not exist already, right? And that is one aspect of it. The larger Christian community does not want to accept the caste. I mean, when I say larger Christian community, I'm talking about the upper caste and the dominant caste Christian community, right? On the other hand, the states where Christian numbers are big, like let's say Tamil Nadu or Kerala, right? In Tamil Nadu, there is a small population of Dalit Christians who have been constantly pressurizing, like, parties like VCK and other mainstream parties, and that's why you see resolution coming in the Legislative Assembly in Tamil Nadu. But in Kerala, when you talk about the Syrian Christians, the upper castes, who have had a legacy of being landlord community, who have had a legacy of, sitting and eating with the upper caste Hindus and Muslims, right? So they are not going to take your interest because you've been in conflict with them historically. Particularly if you look at Kerala, like for example, the Pulayak Christians, they were serving as agricultural laborers under the Syrian Christian landlord time. So that's why they don't take into account for now. And two other stakeholders are, of course, the right-wing discourse in India and the Ambedkar discourse, right? The right-wing discourse in India is, of course, very fearful and very anxious of this conversion. That's why you see a lot of anti-conversion movement in some of the states like Karnataka, in Madhya Pradesh, this are coming. They really fear that Dalits will go en masse outside of Hinduism. That is one of the major fear, right? Of different arguments for whatever reason that is. Then we have, I think I will also talk about the Ambedkar movement. When I say Ambedkar movement, I'm here referring to the North Indian and Maharashtrian based Ambedkar, whose understanding of history is also very different, right? His understanding of history as in 3rd century BC to Asoka. Like, that is our root, and that is where our allegiance should be. right? And so you have somehow betrayed that allegiance. You've betrayed that allegiance. You have somehow moved out of the larger Dalit community because you're not part of this. But on the same hand, they would not talk about, let's say, Dalits in Punjab who have converted to, who become Ravidasis, who become Sikhs, right? Who don't follow that same historical understanding of the past. They would not talk about them, right? Or many Hindus, many Hindu communities who do not have the same understanding of history, but it applies to only Dalit Christians and Dalit Muslims. Why? Because Dalit Christians and Dalit Muslims are small in number. They're small in number, right? Um, and I think the last point I would like to make here, of course, the like currently where we stand, from a range of articles that we saw recently coming from many Ambedkar intellectuals. Again, when I say Ambedkar intellectuals, it's a small section of Ambedkar intellectuals because we are also Ambedkarite, so we also have a view, right? So a small section of Ambedkar intellectuals who have given their own arguments, right? And their arguments runs across the same line, like, look, you've left Hinduism, or you didn't follow Buddhism, so now you're in a different religion, so how can you ask for caste, and now you want to take benefits of caste, reservation and all of that, which does not hold ground, because Dalit Christians, I mean, Dalit Muslims, for a different reason, they could not really bargain. But Dalit Christians, well before 1950, in the 1930s, 1920s, in Tamil Nadu, you see a lot of Dalit Christian groups who are demanding for their recognition within the larger Christian community. They want to be recognized as depressed classes. They are fighting together with their fellow Dalit brothers and sisters who are Hindus. You see leaders like, I think Stalin talked about it. A lot of Palars who converted to Dalit Christians at that point of time are part of Dalit movement. People like, Emmanuel Sekaran, and all of these leaders, right? So we are discounting that. In Andhra Pradesh, in the Dalit movement, a lot of Dalit Christians have been part of it. Why are Dalit Christians not being visible? Because Dalit Christians, when they're part of the larger Dalit movement, they're not emphasizing on their religion. So since they don't emphasize on their religious identity, it is almost like they're absent. But they're not absent, they're very much present, and they're contributing in a lot of ways, but they might not emphasize on their Christian identity, right? So these are some of the dilemmas that a lot of us have, and a lot of Dalit Christians, I feel, have this anxiety when it comes to publicly recognizing who they are, because if they recognize their caste, then the church people will say, look, you're bringing in caste, you're dividing us. Okay, and if they say that you are Dalit Christians, then they don't know what kind of response the other Dalit people might give them. So they're always in this transit. And I also know a lot of Dalit Christian leaders, who are very vocal at a point of time, will also tend to tell you that tone it down a little bit, there is a lot of attack on Christians as a whole, so we need to be together and all of that, right? So a lot of this kind of different responses exist within the Christian community.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sumit, for articulating that. I know this discourse has surfaced a lot of fault lines even within the Ambedkarite community, how forth happening within the community, right? I think nothing surfaces the fault lines particular discourse does, I think, and we can really see that, we can really witness that now. And just even going by what you said, Rohit Vemula, someone who's inspired us to be more politically active, he was a Dalit Christian, and even just how that identity gets erased and how we don't even acknowledge someone who's been so influential for all of us, and what it does, right, to when such identities are erased, it really shows us how this course gets shaped, and it's very unfortunate. But thank you so much for sharing that. Shireen, do you want to add anything? Okay, great. Yeah, just wanted to wrap up with a couple of last questions. Given the way things are right now, do you have any call to action for those of us who care a lot about this issue, and those of us who are directly getting affected and maybe indirectly also getting affected by this. What are some call to action that you would leave all of us with? Either if you can go.
We're both looking at each other. I uh, I don't know. It has been a tough like 2 weeks. I mean, I'm sure more for other people. I do not come from a Dalit community, and I do not know what it is. The pain of being invisibilized in Italy. So I do not know that pain at all. And still, it's been tough for other reasons. But I think there was some sort of a been very heartwarming, and I think everyone needs to engage. And I think it is a time because, as Sumit said, there's also been it is not the first time people have written about this somehow. Like, so I started writing about caste and Muslims around 5-6 years ago, and one of my parents comes from which is caste oppressed, and I started writing about it. And the community I found was amongst the Ambedkar community. They are the ones who like really engaged with it. And of course, I faced a lot of flack from the Muslim community in large to be like similar ideas of there's no caste among us and everything, and a lot of way in which I felt like my work was seen, and I had conversations to understand caste in communities I grew up in was through the larger Ambedkar movement. And many people who are very vehemently against this today have retweeted my articles on Muslim caste, right? So which is where it's a bit sad to understand. Is it what is it about it that and I did not I always knew, of course. So it ties back to the last question, like why does this not happen yet? Because it doesn't benefit any of the powers that be, right? There is a huge and Sumit and I wrote an article in Scroll titled "Who Gains from Keeping Dalits Hindu?" And a lot of people gain from that idea of Hindu. And right now, the way people are clutching to the Hindu identity really inverts. For me, it inverts what Dr. Ambedkar framed really as you clutching to the identity. You're not supposed to clutch to the Hindu identity. It's just a way to understand what is happening to you. So it's been tough to understand also at some points of what and of course the anxieties are understandable, because it is one of the most scheduled caste category is one of the most like important or one of the few big things we have in a constitution, which really makes it in this is a caste society, and to be able to have got that win is a big win. And then you got Prevention of Atrocities Acts, and these are big things in a caste society. So of course any anxieties around it are completely understandable, and I wish we were at a stage where we were discussing how this would happen. I wish we were at a stage where we all would bring our anxieties on the table in a different form of saying, okay, how would it work in this case, or and that was a discussion that was being had, and not that how does it have there's no untouchability outside of this. And just very from pedantic to naive to there's been dog whistling, there's been really communal stuff being said, which is truly heartbreaking. So I don't know what call to action. I didn't answer that at all, but I think engagement with it and from people like who especially don't come from the to be able to voice it. And like I wrote it recently, like I don't even know and of course now I know a few people professors who work on Dalit Muslim their issues, and they come from Dalit Muslim backgrounds, but there are very few active Dalit Muslims on social media in the same way Dalit Christians are, because just the demographic does not have that access today at all. So they're not even there to to say those things. So one is people of course keep engaging in the right way, ask the right questions, and keep thinking of it and talking of it. I think that's it. Sumit might have something slightly better to say.
I think like before I end, like what I think we can do, let's be very clear that Indian judiciary, if you look at the judgments, they very clearly say that caste does not go away after conversion. There is a case in 85, a Dalit Christian cobbler from Tamil Nadu who was not receiving some assistance by the government because he belonged to a Dalit Christian away after conversion, right? You just need to show the evidence, comparable evidence. But the sad thing is that it put that onus of the evidence on a cobbler Dalit Christian. right? Where is he going to bring that evidence, right? Then again, there is one more case in 1996. It was a case of a Syrian Christian woman in Kerala who married a Catholic from an OBC background, and the court, and she wanted to take the OBC reservation. Sorry, OBC reservation, yes, but she came from an upper caste background, and the court clearly said that, look, you cannot acquire a caste just by marrying somebody. It has to be from birth, right? So then you have another case. It was, he contested election and he said that he has come back to Hinduism, right? And then the Supreme Court said that no, he has never lost his caste. It's not about he regaining his caste. He has never lost his caste even after conversion. So from the Supreme Court, it is very clear that caste exists after conversion. What you and the new this KG Balakrishnan Commission, which is going to come out with its report in the next 2 years, it will come with evidence. I'm pretty sure that if it does its work well, there will be sufficient evidence whether the government is going to take it. For that, I think we need to have larger civil society pressures, right? States like Andhra Pradesh, states like Tamil Nadu have already asked for Dalit SC status for Dalit Christians. So we have that support. At a point of time, maybe 15, 20 years back, even inclusion of Dalit Christians in SC status, Christians to be included in SC status. So what we also need is the larger civil society. And how are we going to do it? I think to keep this discourse, bringing it again and again and again and again. Not like one of the, like not like one, it is just one issue somewhere out there, but it is one of the major issue in the larger anti-caste movement. And I think that will make other leaders also speak, or other people also speak. And I think this is a great start.
Thank you both of you for responding to this. I think just having this conversation, even just engaging in this, understanding the nuances, understanding why this is important, and engaging with curiosity and with empathy is so important. And thank you both for the work that you do and for responding to these questions as well. And I would really recommend everybody to go check out the articles. Both of them have written quite a lot about this, so I would recommend all of you to read what they've written. And with that, go ahead, Sumit.
Sorry, last one point.
Go ahead.
And I think we need a lot of support from the larger Ambedkar team. Dalit Christians, because they have this anxiety of like when they come out to the street for large protests, they come out to the streets with a meeting and all of that in small towns in India. They already have that fear that it might polarize the society, right? Or people might address us as Christians now. People might target us as Christians. So there is that fear also why people don't come together. Even after Kandhamal, the violence in 2008, Dalit Christians did not come in large numbers to protest. They in fact were like, okay, let's just look for a rehabilitation, right? Who are the people protesting? These are some of the advocacy groups who are protesting, who are going and filing petitions. And Dalit Muslims are in no place. They have not even started as an organization or as a large group to even come to the street, right? Because of the anxiety of being a Muslim or being a Christian, right? That's where we need a larger support from the Ambedkar community as a whole, because that is our cushion. I cannot go there as a Christian and protest. It will polarize. I can only go there and protest as an Ambedkarite, because that is a cushion. Because the state is a little bit hesitant to target an Ambedkarite, then the state is to a Christian or a Muslim, right? So that is a cushion, and this cushion is not because we want to just use more Ambedkarite ideology. It's not because of that, because we believe that we are Dalits. And we believe that Babasaheb Ambedkar and this entire legacy of leaders have fought for us. And this is our movement. And that is why we are here. It's not just that we need SC status, so we are here. When we started activism, when we started writing, I think I myself have spoken a lot on Dalit Christian issues, right? Because we believe that all of us are supposed to be one community, right? So I think that is where I would end. Thank you.
Thank you, Sumit. I think... I think even what Shireen was saying about, there's so much, I think, vile sort of narratives that are being spewed over the last few weeks. And I really hope that people listen to just what both of you said, and I think just draw courage and inspiration for to be able to just continue this fight. I think it's such an important fight, and it's important for us to um, stand, like those of us within the Dalit community and outside, to really uh, look at this identity, look at these identities, intersectionalities, and be able to just understand the nuances within these identities and just assert them in whatever way we can. And I completely agree. I think the larger Ambedkarite movement has to come together. The group has to come together, and uh, that's the strength that we have, and that's the, I know you said cushion, and I agree with that phrasing. That's the cushion that we have, and that's where we derive our strength from. And so uh, I really hope that that just what you said in the last couple of minutes has inspired me so much, and I really hope that it resonates with so many more of us as well. And with that, I will just switch to questions. Roy, do you want me to summarize the questions and then put them forward, or how are we doing this?
We have a couple of questions in the chat box, so we can start from that. Then we can like ask, get questions, then summarize it, and we can do it.
Cool.
I start with the chat box question.
Sorry, I couldn't hear that.
We can start from the chat box question.
Yeah. Okay, I would encourage more of you to ask questions, and feel free to just put them on the chat and we can summarize, or you can feel free to even unmute and explain your question if you would want to. Okay, there's one question that says, if there is no caste in Christianity, on what basis reservation benefits would be granted? Discrimination on the basis of being a Christian or a Dalit who is outside the Christian community, or Dalit Christian who is within the Christian community?
Can you repeat that again? Sorry.
He says, if there is no caste in Christianity, on what basis the reservation benefits would be granted? Discrimination on the basis of being a Christian. I think the question is largely on what basis would this status be granted? Would it be based on the basis of being a Christian, or being a Dalit, or being a Dalit Christian?
So I think here, like the SC status reservation, the SC status is supposed to be given on the basis of socioeconomic disabilities coming out of untouchability, right? And other educational and cultural backwardness. And I think that is going to be the basis under which SC status is going to be given. So it is of course not based on whether you're a Christian. We're arguing, right, to make the SC status religious neutral, regardless of whichever caste you come from, whether you come from Christianity or Islam, because even in Buddhism and Sikhism, caste as a principle, as a doctrinal principle, is not acknowledged. It's not recognized, right? But why are they supposed to get SC status? Is because caste follows them. The untouchability, the demarcation of them follows them, and that's why they should be given SC status. And like I said, SC status comes with a lot of dimensions, political representation, reservation in educational institutions, reservation in jobs, other schemes that you can have, Prevention of Atrocities Act, a lot of these dimensions which Dalits need. And there have been a lot of studies, sociological studies, there have been reports. There was a report by Satish Deshpande based on National Sample Survey, and it was commissioned by the National Commission on Minorities, and it has clearly spoken about the kind of poverty, occupation, literacy, and a lot of other criteria. Hindus and Dalit, Buddhists and Sikhs also applies to Muslims. So these are the criteria based on which SC status should be given, and that is why what we are demanding is that there should be a caste census, because the last caste census group wise has happened in 1931, right? And for some reason, Indian government after 1950 believing about caste, or enumerating caste in the census will multiply caste. It will perpetuate caste. The same reason is not given for religion, that if you enumerate religion, that religion will multiply. So these are just vague reasons to discard caste-based schemes and caste-based organizations.
Yeah, just to answer that question technically, in case that was also part of the question, it's not actually rocket science to identify these communities at all. Like uh, any state list of OBC, when you pick it up, or even national list of OBC of Maharashtra, now you'll have names like Khatik, right? Now Khatik is a caste in the scheduled caste also. Now Khatik is also caste in the OBC caste. Now what is the difference between the two? Now Khatik in the OBC list has a bracket, those who are not in the scheduled castes, or bracket Muslims. Okay, halalkhor in Maharashtra, it will be bracket those who are doing work of sanitation workers. UP, the OBC list will have which caste was it? Dhobi bracket, those who are not in the scheduled caste category. Now this is clear, like the state itself has, there's no other lexicon for the state to understand these communities, because there is none. It doesn't exist. So at a very basic level, just even if you match the name of communities itself, like many, at least with Dalit Muslims, and Sumit can tell more about how it works with Christian castes, the names are the same communities do the work across, Hindu and Muslim groups. So the names are the same, and it's easy to identify them, with the logic that has been used. Of course, scheduled caste status has been like, it is arising out of understandability, and there's been also like nuances to it, and that will happen with any sort of, like, once this starts, you will have ethnographic data on any communities, you will have large surveys, and you should have a caste census to decide other things. But actually, it's very like BJP government and its affidavit in this case in November last year, 2022, has given this is identifiable. How do we identify Dalit Christians and Dalit Muslims? Actually, it's very easy to identify this. It's absolutely easy. There is no ambiguity at all about who are Dalits communities in any state. So you don't even need to do the whole work of refinding it. But obviously, it'll be good to do that also.
Okay, thank you so much, Shireen, for answering that technically, and for Sumit for answering that question. I can't see other questions. I can see some comments, and everyone can feel free to sort of read those comments. Yes, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
There is one question by Sanjaya Sunap. So I'll read out the question.
Go ahead.
When the Constitution itself denied the Muslim and Christian to be included in the scheduled caste category, how do you demand this, and why can't you demand a separate one like EWS?
Okay. So what does the Constitution does is the Constitution does not deny, or it does not agree to anything. What Constitution did was, under Article 341, it empowers the President to exclude or include people in the list of scheduled caste. And that has happened not just even among Hindus, there are a lot of castes which have been included and excluded since 1950, right? So Constitution is not like a static document. Constitution does is it gives you certain provisions, it gives you certain frameworks under which you operate, right? Words like secular in the Constitution, but in 1976 you had, right? You didn't have schemes like Panchayati Raj. Later you had Panchayati Raj, right? A lot of things keep changing, right? What we need to understand is, what is the criteria? If the criteria for Dalit Hindus, if the criteria for understanding untouchables and Dalits in Hindus and Sikhs and Buddhists is applied to Dalit Christians and Muslims, if they correspond to each other, that means they are of the same group of people, or they have same kind of social and economical disadvantages, right? And that is what we are arguing. We are arguing that the criteria are the same. If you apply the criteria of identifying Dalit Hindus and Dalit Buddhists and Dalit Sikhs, you will find Dalit Muslims and Dalit Christians among Christians and Muslims. That is what we are arguing. So Constitution is like not a static document. Things can be changed. Like I said, Buddhists have been added later, Sikhs have been added later, and so yes, Dalit Christians and Dalit Muslims also can be added.
For responding to that. There's one other question. How can one identify Dalits in Islam or Christianity? We know that the untouchable practices in Hinduism are far depressive than the other religions, the comparison between the two Dalit statuses is also contradicting itself. I think this one's already answered, so I'm not gonna anything to add. I know both of you already answered this question, so I'm not
You know,
gonna
I think
go ahead.
I'll just, I mean, I think we've answered it, but just because perhaps it is something that does keep coming up, and I'll just try another way of answering it. So, um, it is something that's, for example, I'm asked a lot. I used to be asked a lot of, is caste is there caste in Islam? And then I'll say yes. Like, is it as bad? Right? And this is what everyone always asks. It can't be as bad, right? This question really, we need to think of, what is this question asking, right? Is it as bad? And of course, with caste in general, we to think of what constitute as a bad caste. Do you need gore? Do you need violence? What do you need to accept that there is caste discrimination? But in the case of untouchability, it actually makes it very clear. So even while these questions can be asked in many ways, untouchability is a treatment given now to some people where the touch is thought of as polluting, where they are they are treated in a certain way which creates them apart from society. And now what Sumit and I've been saying is that what happened with these communities. So Dalit Christians and Muslims did not come out of nowhere, right? They are converted people. They are converted from what is called now as Hinduism, and now conversion has happened. They belong to certain communities, and now they have either you call it conversion or they are in another community now. Now what has not, so it's not like when a person, if I am a person from the Halalkhor community living in this basti in Varanasi, now the day I start saying the kalma, it's not like my house doesn't change that day. Next morning doesn't mean that now my job has changed. Now I'll get post in the IPS, or I'll just be accompanied with a Mastercard. It doesn't matter if of course people take up religion for various aspects. It's given people for different reasons. It's given them solace. It's given them some sort of a articulation. It's given them a theological mental community. But it does not change where you live. It does not change how your neighbor called you earlier in your absence, what caste they used to call you. Suddenly, if a Brahmin person, so forget between Muslims and Christians are a minority, they interact with non-Muslims and Christians all the time. So when you say that the caste is not so bad in Islam, are you saying that Dalit Muslims do not meet people from other religions? How are they treated? Right? When your Brahmin neighbor or any other upper caste Hindu neighbor finds out that you belong to a community which used to clean, do they care that you say the gospel? Do they not? Do they not? So it does not matter. This idea, it's not as bad, is a very notional. It's idea, not really, not what happens. If you think through experiences of people, both written and even logically, if you think of what might happen, just imagine a situation of a person converting in a Dalit basti. What happens if the relations back home? It's all. I mean, the way India works is in a network. If you have become a Muslim now, you're Dalit, you have become Muslim. You still don't have any person in college. You still don't have anyone who can tell you about anything. So nothing really changes in those senses, and that Islam and Christian religion can give you certain things, but it can't change your house. It can't change, the land that you don't have. It can't suddenly give you land. So yeah, I just wanted to add to it. Thanks.
Thanks,
Yes, I
Shireen.
think I just have a small point to make.
Go ahead.
I remember, I don't exactly remember where it was written, but in a report, I guess I read that religion is your cloth and caste is your skin. You can change your clothes, but you cannot change your skin, right? And I remember that very clearly. And like when people talk about our Dalit Muslims face the same kind of situation like Dalit Hindus, they're almost imagining us Dalit Christians and Dalit Muslims living in some other island with Muslims and Christians, and they're not part of the larger society. Like to give you, like, people from Andhra Pradesh will know this, that in places like Karamchedu and Chunduru, when these atrocities had happened, Dalit Christians were targeted because of their caste, right? Shalin recently had prepared an entire document on different towns and villages in Tamil Nadu where separate burial grounds, the two tumbler separate burial grounds, two tumbler systems, not allowing the processions go through the caste Hindu colonies. All of that still exists. So Dalit Christians are also part of a larger society. They are not somewhere in the other, right? And that is something that we need to yes understand. And also I think I forgot to mention one thing, um, that years 1950 some of the Sikh leaders in the Constituent Assembly, they had asked for 4 castes to be added in the scheduled caste list but not others, okay, which got added later. And people who say that oh, the Kaka Kalelkar Commission asked for Sikhs to be added, let's also say that Kaka Kalelkar Commission also talked about Christians, Dalit Christians, right? Or the high power minority this thing committee in 1982 or 83. People
Gopal Singh,
keep,
yeah.
yeah, people keep citing that, oh, they asked for the neo-Buddhists to be included in the scheduled caste list. They also had asked for Dalit Christians.
Yeah.
So you cannot,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Yeah. Even the report by Giri Institute, it surveyed 7,500 households in UP in 2015, and it talks about Dalit Muslims experiencing untouchability, and it says not only from Muslims but also from Hindus, because it's not something, and they cross-checked it by going to the non-Dalit Muslim and Hindu households and asking them, do you discriminate? And they willingly say, yes, of course we do. So because it's a matter of pride for them. So again, Dalit Muslims and Christians will face untouchability not only from their own religion, whatever thing, and but also from others. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just wanted to sort of double click on even what Sumit said, that it's not like it's not both Shireen and Sumit said this. It's not like materially anything changes, right? Yes, there is some support from, yes, there are some differences and some changes because of adopting a new religion, but materially really nothing changes. Network wise, nothing. Also, when someone from any background, Hindu background or any background, asks us our caste names are still the same. I would still be a Mala person. I would still be a Madhika person, right? Like, it won't, just because I've converted into Christianity, my caste hasn't changed. And so I think that is also useful to sort of iterate, because that's how people are recognized anyway when with respect to identity. That's what they ask, like and in the Telugu states, this is such a common question when you meet someone for the first time. They ask, in Telugu it goes like mere emitlu, so what group of people are you? And that's the first question that people ask you. That's the first question that so many people have asked me in college as well, and that's just how it is. So you can't say I'm Christian. They will iterate that question, they will repeat that question and say, no, but what are you? And you have to reveal your caste, and that's just how it works. So yeah, thank you so much, both of you, for sharing, for responding to that question. There are a couple more questions. I'm just going to read it out. In Indian politics presently, BJP is the only national party who's talking about Pashmandas. According to their strategies, they're putting minorities against the minorities. What do you think? What repercussions might it have in future, both negatively and positively, if any? Oh, Shireen, you're on mute. Is Shireen still here? I think she was not able to unmute herself. Is she back? No. Okay, we'll just wait for a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's back. Shireen, can you hear us?
No?
It's a little faint, but we can hear you.
Okay. Yes, I'm so sorry. I have no idea why. Any better?
We can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay, okay. Sorry, my network went off. Yeah, the Pasmana thing. It's very interesting. It's very new. It's happened in the last like I was actually during doing field work in UP, Bihar, Maharashtra last year, and it's the first time when Modi mentioned Pasmanda in July last year, and after that it just went a bit bonkers in several ways. And there was like a mushrooming of parties overnight, like, and there were groups which were called, I mean, I'm not saying the exact name right now, but like groups were called like All India Muslim Group, and they changed to All India Pasmanda Group, like overnight. Like the people, like the banners, the profile pictures on WhatsApp changed. Like these are groups I was talking to, and suddenly just people change. So it's a very interesting thing, but what I can say is it's very media centered, this discourse right now. Even the Pasmanda movement as such, like the word Pasmanda itself is not something that many people will instinctively, not many lower caste people from even North India will identify immediately. It's not to, it's a concept, it's like Bahujan. It's an imagination of something, not to mean that those communities do exist, but Pasmanda itself is not a category that most people intrinsically know. It's a thing by a movement. It's by the scholar Ali Anwar, and then of course there's a movement and based on it. And of course that word Pasmanda has also been thrown around a lot in various ways. Like this recent article by Arvind Kumar, kept using the word Pasmanda to kind of say that Pasmanda Muslims shouldn't get scheduled caste status, and it's a very like and it happened a lot. Like people use that word to discredit claims of Dalit Muslims because it's a very vague word. And Pasmanda is again a concept used for that was envisaged for lower caste Muslims, and it includes both Dalit Muslims and occupational castes. It doesn't mean all Pasmandas do not need scheduled caste status. No one is asking for that. Yeah, that term has been used. So I've just stopped using that word anyway because it's useful in some context, but it's also like now become some sort of a. So BJP is doing this weird thing. It'll like I mean, BJP does it all the time, right? Like it will have its polycentric approaches. It'll do little bit of this, little bit of that. It doesn't really like mean anything in that sense. So it'll have some small thing going on. Is appointed 3 people in UP from lower caste Muslim things. So they'll hold some small conferences saying Pasmandas are with BJP, but obviously then the same unit of the same state will say something anti-Muslim about all Muslims. So it's really it's tough for me to I don't like to speculate what's happening because I ahead of time, so I don't know what is happening really. But as of now, one can say it's a very media centered thing. What is happening? It's not really reached like outreach among Muslims because BJP, I mean, is not willing to really, and it's not really addressing any real Pasmanda issues, which is either like from the, I mean, if I'm talking of Varanasi because I was there for a while. It's things like flat. They were there was a Pasmanda big sammelan in January that I attended and reported on, and they were asking for flat electricity rates, because a lot of the groups are weavers, so they were asking for that. They were asking for dilution of anti-slaughter laws because a lot of them are from the Qurayshi community. They've been really badly impacted. They're asking for GST being lowered because a lot of them are small traders. So BJP is not interested in obviously any of these things. So it's whatever it's doing is like just a word being circulated. It doesn't mean anything, and it's not clear what the impact of it is going to be because frankly I can't tell what really they're doing. But yeah, I'm keeping an eye on it, and perhaps we'll know a little better. I don't know if Sumit has had other observations on our favorite party. No, okay.
He's vigorously nodding his head. Cool. Thank you so much for responding to that. I think we don't have. There's one question. I think it's useful to sort of, speak about that. it's phrased in a certain way, but I'll just read it out and maybe try and rephrase it. Will any of the speaker reject the claim that Ambedkar wanted Dalits to make India Prabuddha Bharat and get converted to Buddhism? I think useful to spend some time on Baba Saheb's political action with the call to action with Buddhism, and what that means to other minority religions. If we can just spend some time on that, and either of you can answer that question.
Yes, I think I'll speak a little bit on that. I might not be, it might not be completely comprehensive, but particularly when it comes to Christians, I think Ambedkar in his volume 5, I guess, talks about Indian Christians. And he says that I'm concerned about Indian Christians because majority of them are drawn from the untouchable community, who he claims, who he has his sympathy towards, right? And he then goes on to talk about what have the missions done and why are the Dalit Christians not able to, how are the Dalit Christians behaving? Why are they not able to politically assert themselves? And a lot of these things he keeps talking about. He never tells them that, look, you have to come back to Buddhism. He's not talking about it. He's a person who is very aware of historical trends, right? Even before Baba Sahib converted to Buddhism in 1956, a lot of things has happened in India in the last 500 to 600 years, since 1956, since 1500, 1600, 15th and 16th century. Right, we have a lot of Portuguese missionary going to Goa. Then you have a lot of mission societies that are coming to Kerala, Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu. A lot of people have converted to Christianity and they found a way for themselves and all of that, right? And so in that, it is very difficult to undo some of the things which has happened in history. And when people have found a certain way, right? And these are things that we need to understand. Even constitutionally, if you look at like Article 25, these are things that will tell you, a freedom of conscience, freedom of practice, propagation of religion, right? These are things which also have a personal journey. Baba Sahib Ambedkar himself had a personal journey. It was not just a political aspect of converting to Buddhism. He had a personal journey of why he considered Buddhism at a point of time, right? And so these are some things which, like for example, my mother, like I'll give you a small example, like my mother converted to Christianity at a point of time, my father converted to Christianity at a point of time where they were in a very hopeless phase in life. They were not treated well, they were looked down upon, they were stigmatized. And that point of time, some missionary came somewhere and told them that, look, this Jesus loves you, and you are like the child of God and all of that. And they believed in that, right? For a long period of time, they believed in that, and they believed that that is the way they want to go out, they go forward with. So what we are trying to say is SC status, and again I will reiterate this, SC status is not a debate of theology. SC status is not a debate on which religion is good, which religion is bad, because that kind of debate can go on forever. If you want to go into that loop, if you want to go into that kind of a spiral, then all religions will be scrutinized. And now that debate should be kept aside. Yes, Baba Sahib believed, I also believe that when Baba Sahib said that Buddhism and Brahmanism is like the conflict of Indian history, yes, we understand that. And for a long period of time, Buddhism came as a revolt against Brahmanism and all that. In a historical perspective, we understand that, right? But you also need to look at the dynamism of history, and the history, there are a lot of changes that has happened in history which cannot be undone now. And if you are saying that only if that history is undone, then you should be given reservation, then you should be given state rights and citizenship benefits, that is hegemonic. Like, you have betrayed us by not following our religion, so that is why you should not be given this. I don't think Baba Sahib Ambedkar would have done that ever with anybody. Otherwise, he would have clearly said, Dalit Christians, you convert to you convert to Buddhism. He didn't say that. He wrote a separate chapter, the untouchables among Christians, right? And these are some sort of space you need to give each other, because I believe culturally now Dalits across India, we are not similar. Socially and economically, we might be in similar positions. We might experience some of the same practices, but culturally, we're not similar. Even among Hindus, from Punjab to Kerala, from Tamil Nadu to Bengal, What are you going to say to the Motuas in West Bengal who believe their Harichand and Guruchand? Okay, what are you going to say to the Ravidasis in Punjab who are saying that they believe in Ravidas? Would you tell them that, look, if you don't follow this, if you don't follow Buddhism, you should not be given reservation? No, you're not going to do that. Where are we coming together? We are coming together based on our shared vulnerability. And that shared vulnerability is something that we need to focus upon. It's a minimum consensus that you're coming together. We're not going to change each other's culture and religion, language. Like, I mean, forget about religion, I don't even say the word Jai Bharat. I'm from Orissa, and I don't even have that concept of Jai Bharat, coming from UP, even from Ambedkar movement. Even movement wise, VCK will give a very different kind of a slogan. Andhra Pradesh people will give a very different kind of a slogans, because they've also been influenced by the left movement, and they sing the same kind of songs that Gadar sings, right? So we need to understand this plurality and then come together. And that is the beauty, that is the beauty. We need, we need to come together and not like force anything upon each other.
Absolutely love that. Thank you so much, Sumit, for taking the time and responding to that question. I think just beautifully articulated. I see a lot of comments. No, a couple of questions, but okay. There's. Just gonna take two more questions because of time. There's one question that says, any thoughts on Mia Muslims and their caste status in Assam? They're basically stigmatized as quote unquote outsiders.
I don't know enough to comment right now. If Sumit does, he can. It wouldn't be right for me to comment.
No? Okay. We can move on. You can get in touch with both of them separately to...
Yeah, I think I'll read it. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay.
Great question. Yeah.
Okay. There's another question that says, shouldn't affirmative action be based on current social reality as opposed to theology or paper-based ideology? Isn't benefiting people over and above past controversies or present complexities? I'm trying to make sense of this question. Ankita, if you want to rephrase your question, was that as a response to any previous question, or was it a separate question? Maybe if you could rephrase your question. In the meanwhile, I'm going to go to another question. It also relates to the many tribals are converted, then why should they get the ST reservation? Okay. Many tribals are converted, why should they get? Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I think again we need to come down to the basic premise, right? For SC, for scheduled caste, there is a premise of how to identify them. So for STs, there is a criteria for how to identify them, right? And those criteria are mentioned, and they might keep changing with constitutional amendments. But these criteria are nothing to do with religion. They have nothing to do with whether you're Christian, because even among Adivasis, there are hundreds of practices, right? What are you going to say to the Northeast Christians? The Nagas, the Khasis, the Garos, the Mizos? Are you going to tell them that you're Christians, so now you should give up reservation? No. See, we are trying to look at religion and tribe and religion and caste as two separate entities which are mutually exclusive. But we don't understand that they overlap, right? And that might be very different. Like, for example, yes, now there is some sort of a campaign by RSS and campaign by other right-wing groups to de-link religion, to de-link, Christianity, Adivasi Christians from the ST status. But a lot of Adivasi Christians are saying, no, just because we've converted to Christianity does not mean that we've stopped being Adivasis. Majority of the people in now Manipur who are protesting the cookies, they're Christian STs. Right? And why are they fighting now? They protested because the ST rights were supposed to be taken by one group. And all of them were Christians at the same time. So yes, you can be a Christian and ST at the same time. You can be a Dalit and Buddhist at the same time. You can be a Dalit and Christian at the same time. And that is what we are arguing, right? That these are not two separate categories. This is overlapping.
Great. I think on that note, I'm gonna wrap. Okay, there's a lot of gratitude and a lot of thank you messages to both of you and to ARC for for your responses, for just organizing this. I'd also like to wrap up um, with gratitude from my side. Thank you so much for everything that you continue to do. I know this is not a very easy time, and just to be a voice in the midst of all the chaos, I just wanted to express gratitude for everything that you're doing, for the work that you do both publicly and in spaces like this, where you take the time, take the effort to educate people, to engage, and to just be continue to be hopeful, continue to be patient, and continue to fight this fight. It is a long We have a long way to go, but like Sumit said, it's we are not in a static sort of a constitutional system. We keep growing, we keep evolving, and hopefully we get to see in our lifetime and very soon this changing. And for people who have been historically marginalized and oppressed and discriminated against, get protection, get entitlements, and get the respect and status that they truly deserve, that we truly deserve. And with that, thank you. And I'm going to hand it over to Abhijit.
Vignesh, I think Vignesh, one of our member, will give the vote of thanks.
Yeah, so thank you, Sumit, Shireen, and Ravali for giving this wonderful evening for us. It was really an amazing talk. And as we have shared it in our poster, it is just an initial stage of starting our conversations. So this talk has really helped us to build a conversation around the representation of Dalit Christians and Muslims. And considering the time period, we were not able to take much of the questions which might have come from the speakers from raising hands. So whoever wants to give some feedbacks about the talk, about this talk, or even if you want to get answers for any questions, please write to us on our Instagram page. I'm sharing that link in the chat box, and we can share the communication link or something for the speakers too, so that if they have time, they can answer to your questions as well. And thank you for the speakers and the moderator as well as the participants who have spared their time this evening to join our conversation for a cause. Thank you.
We're done.
Yes.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Have a
Vignesh,
great
and
day.
thank you, Ravali. It was very nice
Yeah,
talking
thank
to
you.
you and
Yes,
hearing you speak as
same
well.
here.
Thank you for everything you said, and thanks, Sumit, and thanks, Abhijit.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Abhijit and
Yeah.
Roy, as well, to make this event happen before anything else.
Thank you. Supreme Jai Bhim to all. Thank you.
Jai
Bye
Bhim.
bye.
Okay. Bye.
Thanks,
Jai Hind.
everyone. Good night.